such an asshole.
All right, we have another melancholy CPA from the guy who lost his dad. So let's not do any super chats and kind of focus on this for the sake of him and the problems that he's dealing with. And he wanted to pay for this. He paid handsomely to share this with you guys. So hopefully you don't suffer the same. Hello, Aaron. You did my video PSA regarding my father and talking to your parents. Now I want to take my own advice to start working on my mother. My mother will definitely be the more complex one and more detailed. I'm sending you $100 so you can get started right away. If you need more, just let me know and you'll receive the money. I know you're a very trustworthy businessman. It's not trust, that's just busy. That's really what it is. Let's start with her origin story. My mother was raised in an abusive household by her mother. She would beat her children with electric cords, was very prone to anger, which led to a terrible upbringing for her mentally. My mother also tells us that allegedly she was raped or touched, I don't remember which, by her elder brother. She holds a lot of anger and resentment towards that brother and doesn't speak to him. She also says that the same brother also did the same thing to her younger sisters. My mother is very prone to anger and is very confrontational. Assuming this is true, and I have no reason to doubt her, well, yeah, that's going to be the result of being abused, especially by your brother. So, yeah, you don't trust anyone. Like you said, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She is also very untrusting of people, is very paranoid. I don't know if that's paranoid, man, that people plan against her, and speaks very unkindly about people, even my father after he passed away. Growing up with my parents, my dad liked to drink and go out a lot, which led to fights with my mother and father. He would come home drunk at a very late hour of the day on weekends. My mother would confront him while he was drunk and trying to sleep. I know I shouldn't laugh, but I'm just picturing it. Ladies, you're the number one. Ladies, you are the number one cause men drink. It's just you nagging, and you get and just you could support a nag, and nagging leads to alcoholism. I'll just leave it at that. Other things lead there too, like having a lot of fun and genetics. But you really throw fuel on the fire where you're not the nice June Ward lady and you're nagging and ball busting them. But that's assuming and operating from the premise you even care about your husband in the first place. She's that type of person that will not stop hounding you about something no matter how many times you ask her to stop. Your dad should have dumped it. She shouldn't have bred, no offense to you, but these are the type of people that hopefully when you see these things in yourself, you don't breed. You end it. I don't mean, but you make sure, like, this is a reason that I'm not one of the many reasons, but I look back and I'm like, no way am I, if even by accident, you'll try your best not to have a dysfunctional family. I'm like, dude, I can barely keep it together for myself, let alone with a woman, let alone with little kids in tow. Like, no way. Kids are not going to be putting through what I did, unintentionally or not. But yeah, these are people that should not have had kids. Your dad shouldn't have proposed. Should be very insulting, even so much as to insult my grandmother or grandfather, whom my father loved very much. And this would lead to physical fights between them. My mother was always resentful of the fact that my father would send his mother, father, mentally ill brother and sisters money or items to Mexico to help them, since Mexico was poor compared to the United States. So I think I got that down. Admittedly, we don't have everything we didn't have everything we wanted growing up, but by no means were we lacking anything we needed. So I never understood why she had such an issue with that, with what he was doing. We had food, our own house, a car, and clothes. I do admit that at some point my father did need to stop staying out with his friends, drinking so much. So what? Maybe she really cart before the horse, egg before the chicken. You think maybe she drove him to leave? I know a lot of guys. I thought it was a joke when I was younger. And now I know guys who, like, yeah, they go to work, they go drink, they'll do anything but stay at home with their wives. And they're predominantly all older, but. Didn't need to stop staying out with his friends, drinking so much as he had kids and more important responsibilities in his life. My mother came with my father from Mexico around 17, 19 years old when he was around 27 to 29 years old, I believe. So my mother was very young, and I imagine she wanted to escape her current situation with promises of a better life. No one is coming to save you. Everybody who relies on other people and things to solve their problems end up in a worse situation than they're already in. All right? Your mother thought, I'm going to rely on this guy or the United States, an arbitrary line in the dirt, and then I'll be better off. Now, I can understand if you're Jewish and it's 1938 and you're Munich, yeah, maybe you want to get out. But if you're bringing mental illness, necessarily none by which of your own, not your fault, but you're young and you're having kids and you're just being and you are lazy. You're having other people solve your problems. A big criticism I have of any disadvantaged group, it's like it's always somebody else's fault except your own, and forget fault. See, it's not your fault that you were brought up in poverty, da da da. It's still your responsibility because you control you. Get out of it yourself. Well, I had kids I couldn't afford. Well, I guess your entire life is over and you no longer can save yourself because you're crippled financially and time-wise. But this just doesn't, I mean, I know she was young and stupid as we all were in 17, 18, 19 years old, but this is just, yeah, you're going to have a huge, but we haven't even gotten to your problem yet. When my mother decided to divorce my father, things became very uncomfortable. Relationships in our family suffered greatly. My mother would tell she wanted to divorce my dad over years repeatedly to the point where I no longer cared, and I told her, do it or shut up. Yeah, that's horrible. That's like pulling the Band-Aid off slowly. This led to the 3-year-long divorce, where I tried reasoning with my father to end things quickly so we could move on as a family together. Good. During the divorce, both parents tried getting me to pick a side between the two, which I could not. This led me to deciding not to speak to them for roughly 3 years. Smart move. Absolutely. My mother, being very paranoid and crazy, ended up switching lawyers, I believe, 5 times through the divorce. She claimed that her lawyers were not working on our case properly and brought out or friends with my father because her lawyers actually knew his lawyer. I explained to her, yes, most lawyers likely know each other since it's part of the profession they meet in court. My mother wanted the house where we grew up, and she promised that she would be content, you meant to say, with only that. Well, what did she do? Did she work? Did she raise you kids? Doesn't sound like she was June Cleaver. My father refused to listen to me when I told him about what her demands were to settle. After the 3-year divorce ended, my father finally gave in and gave my mother the house we grew up in. He kept everything else. I bet you it's no longer. I bet you that was. This is what led to my resentment towards my parent. They spent 3 years fighting over material objects. They love things more than the children. Yes, there you go. Very important lesson for, I would say, 85% of people in America to realize. 85% of your parents love something more than you. It could be God, but they're ordered to do that if they're a real religious person. But usually they love themselves, and more often than not, they love things more than they love their children. They only wanted to have you. They didn't want to raise you. I cannot emphasize that enough. Read the book, How Not to Become a Millennial. This is just the latest incarnation of millennials, blaming boomers for not loving them enough and then treating their kids the same crappy way. But yeah, your parents are fallible. They are fallible. Putting heavy stress on the relationship between my 2 sisters and I, only to end in the exact same resolution we could have came to in the first 3 months. My mother has always been prone to picking fights to get her way, gets angry easily, and has an issue with anything that isn't to her standards. Very untrusting. Even of me growing up, she was worried that I would do something to my sisters. She had to worry, irrational, but you understand why she had that worry. Spoke to them in private about making sure if I were ever to do anything, they didn't think it was okay, that they should speak to her and tell her because she would believe them. I'm not sure how descriptive she was when speaking to my sisters. My younger sister is 15, and I know for a while when she became older, she has become slightly more distanced from me and completely distanced from my older sister. I think that's just 15-year-olds. Universally, all across the world. I know it doesn't matter if you're Latino or not. That's just girls who are 15. My mother is medium high maintenance taste, which is extremely annoying considering she grew up poor and was a housewife, worked in factories her entire life. All right, she worked, then she should know. She would insult my father's very long-time workers because they were dirty. My father owned a small company, I won't say what, a real man company. I always hated the way she spoke down to the workers growing up. I knew them growing up, and they were nice and humble people. Yeah, you don't slam on blue-collar people. They're the ones that make sure your toilet runs and your electricity is on. They're not shuffling papers. Fast forward to present day. After my father died, my mom still has resentment towards him. After his father passed away, my aunts were tasked with managing properties, collecting rent. Oh, God, the aunts. Oh, Jesus. This is why you pass it. In the olden days, you'd pass it to the oldest son because usually you made all your mistakes on the eldest son. The eldest son became out stronger than all the other siblings, so they were most reliable. But that wasn't always a guarantee if you look at most of European history. Well, I guess any history. Yeah, Middle Eastern history, Asian history. I'm going to give it to my son, and the eldest son was a mess up. Where do the aunts go? I believe my aunt's husbands grew a bit of resentment when my grandfather passed away, he left the high majority land and property to my father, who would send my grandfather money regularly so he could pay for those investments. I believe one of my aunts began stealing money from the rent income that the property generated. My father noticed a difference in total when he would come and visit Mexico like he did yearly. My mother said that she told him for years that he was worried about her taking his money from him, and his own family ended up doing it. I asked her to please shut up since he had just passed away and they had now been divorced for 7 years or so. Part of this bit of resentment that I also had towards my father. He was bossy and his sisters listened to him because he sent them money and stuff. I never asked him for a penny when I started working and took care of myself in my hopes that he would understand I wasn't interested in his money or property. I loved him because he was my father. My father always wanted to be sent back to his town with his parents. My father always wanted to be sent back to his town with his parents, so me and my sister respected his wishes. Oh, you mean after he passed away? Okay. I paid about $5,000 to send him back home ASAP. I knew that my father never left a will, which is where slight issues began. Slight? He always told people about his plans and what he was going to do. Yeah, but he never set up the will, did he? So, I mean, that's kind of out of your hands now. It's going to be a family destroying the carcass. There will be nothing left. However, when it was time to put up or show up with things like his will, he would find out it was never taken care of at the last minute. I knew there wasn't a will when I asked his most trusted lawyer about it, and his response was, he never told me about that. My sister, uncle, and aunt here in the United States thought I was crazy. My father told him he prepared a will, and they all believed him. I knew my father, so I knew there wasn't. We go to Mexico. My aunt, who is currently in charge of things there, she's the regent. Look that up. I just learned that word like this past year. Regent, what regent means. The same thing, there was no will. She's the only aunt I can honestly say I trust. Thankfully, her husband doesn't meddle in family business, unlike my two other aunts. Yeah. We came back from Mexico. My sister and I had everything planned out. We were in agreement on pretty much everything. My mother began speaking to me one day, asking general questions about how things were going. Yeah, she smells the money, I bet. She ended up mentioning the properties and how my sisters and I were going to divide them. I told her, well, my father always said that what he had was for all of us. She responded, all of us, including me. I said, no, his children. Mother, you're already divorced. There you go. She replies, what do you mean? I suffered years married to. I stopped her in mid-sentence and said, you have already been divorced for years and you have your house that was paid off already. She gave a look that I know too well that she was angry or offended by something stolen. Yeah, she loves the money more than you. At this point, I have no problem walking away from your mom if I were you. Like, get emancipated. Because if you're in the United States, and there's some you're going to have to look into. In the United States, some states, depends on the state, you are, in some states, legally responsible for your parents if they screw up, even in old age. And so if your mom's in one of these states, you got to get out of that state. Or it's not even whether she's in that state. You got to get in a different state or something like that. Some definitely to look, because boomers are just so reliable. They'd never do that, like a reverse mortgage. Use their children's credit card, social security number to establish credit cards. They'd never do that. Outsource the kids to daycare? Never do that. I became disgusted with what I saw. I immediately informed my sister and my mother's sister, who was very reasonable. She assured me that what I did was right, and with time, my mother will understand. Knowing my mother, I don't think she will. Right now, I'm faced with this issue. I honestly don't know if we will be able to mend the relationship with my mother no matter what we do. I agree, dude. And it's look, kind of a crappy mom. And now this is so telling. She loves the money more than you. Your parents love themselves more than you. I hate to say it. That's why they dragged out the divorce for all that time. Not once were you guys really considered. Your dad, if I recall correctly, told you that you're no longer his son. These are not good parents. These are parents that love themselves more than you. And I know it's really hard to fight biological programming, especially the love for your mother. All right. But I don't care, blood or water. Bad people are bad people. Your mom's a bad person. Me personally, I have no guilt. The heart was kicked out long ago and a metal pump was put in. The Jarvis Cappy 2000. And it really, I hate it when people try to steal money from me. I hate it when people lie to me, say they have my best interest at heart, who are relatives that should love you or people that love you, and then their actions are completely different. Thankfully, it's been very rare in my life. But the worst offenders are those that claim to love you, and they're only trying to get money out of you. Those are the worst. And your mom getting all pissed off she wasn't getting money shows you she loves the money, which is just what? Exhibit D, that she loved things more than you. So the only way you're going to mend your relationship with your mother is you put her on ice, say, we're not talking until you apologize. Listen to Stefan Molyneux. He has some good videos on reconciling with your parents and hauling up to say, it's like, yeah, and you have every right to do this. You were a shit mom, right? You loved money and things more than anything else. You had everything handed to you by dad. This is not her fault, I wouldn't say, but she also is mentally ill, probably suffered from she did suffer some great mental trauma. Again, not her fault, but that doesn't change the fact you're dealing with an unstable woman. And the fact you're going after dad's money when he explain and you've been divorced from him, that's it, I'm done. Until you start supporting yourself and you start putting people in your life first. I do mean that, not you first, but your children above all else first in your life. We're not talking anymore. When you're ready to apologize and like go talk to a therapist, like don't talk to a chick therapist. Honest to God, don't. I don't even know if you should talk to. Get Molyneux. Have Molyneux do it. There. Pay Molyneux the money. Don't pay it to some shrink. Then like, yeah, have Molyneux do it. Although he doesn't take money, he'll probably do it for free. No matter what we do. Yeah, the best thing to do is walk away. Just like you got to be honest. Say, here's the way out, Mom. Like to repair our relationship, but we've never had one. And we're going to have a relationship. You're going to actually start, achieving altruism and selflessness. You're going to have to start caring about other people. Greed can be very destructive. I've already spoken to my younger sister alone about what happened as best I can. That her mother loves us, but she is 100% in her head. No. I know I would never rob my sister of her inheritance my father left, regardless of there being no will. As difficult as times are for me right now, I've lost my father. I don't know if we will be able to fix things with our mother. I don't think you will either. I'll just be honest, honest guy consulting. Right now, I'm just worried about my youngest since she's 100% under my mother's care until she is 18. I've never been a greedy person. While I understand money changes people, the women are programmed to collect resources and survive. That's true. That's true. I find it disgusting that what my aunt did to my father, how my mother is behaving. I just hope the same doesn't happen to me and my sisters. Since they are the only two people I can really trust right now. All right, you can't trust anyone but yourself. And here's what you're going to do with your sister. We'll kind of go through everyone that you got to deal with. Whoever has power of this estate, sounds like you and his sister, I believe, your aunt, the stable one. You either liquidate the estate. I'd say you liquidate it so there's none of this managing properties in Mexico and flying and COVID. Don't deal with that. Liquidate the estate, okay? Take the money. I believe your oldest sister is 18. Just give her money. Here it is, okay? You take your third or whatever I don't know who you're splitting across with the aunts or not. Maybe it's just the kids. But you take your share. You pay yourself out. And then since your youngest sister is not 18, you should put that in a trust of some kind. I can't tell you what to invest in, bonds, inflation-adjusted bonds, whatever. A well-diversified portfolio, that's a consultation. You have to talk to somebody else. But squirrel that away. I think it's going to be a custodial account is what you're going to do. And you got to make sure your mom doesn't have access to that and can't have access to it. Only you and your sister can have access to it. So you're going to have to talk to somebody at Vanguard or wherever to set up a custodial account. And that when your sister turns 18, she has access to that money. And then once everyone's paid out, here's what you got to do, dude. You let it go. You let it go. Because now everyone's an adult, even though they're young and stupid. I don't care if women are more prone to spend money. I just did the research for who has better finances. Women are prone to spend more money than men, it turns out. But that's not your concern, man. This is where you get to be a stoic and you get to learn to accept what you do and do not control, but more importantly, who you do and do not control. You don't control your mom. You don't control your sisters. All you can do ethically and morally and probably legally, you pay everybody out their fair share, and then you save it for your sister until she's 18, and then boom. Now, if you want to go beyond that and help your sister make sure she doesn't major in stupid stuff, protect her from the boys, say, listen, be the older brother. That's what older brothers got to do. I will tell you as an older brother, be prepared to be hated. Be prepared to go F off. You don't know you're a nerd or a square. Heard it before. But that's every sibling ever. And they're going to do their own thing. And especially forget siblings or relation. I just know teenagers. The handful of teenagers, they've gone and they're not. You could. Here's the secret to life. Don't screw this up. They will screw it up. Because because Cardi B told them something cooler. Oh, no, listen, you're just a nerd. You're a square. Cardi B said, oh my gosh, do this and snort coke. Oh, I want to snort coke like Cardi B. So you need to control everything you can, and that is your reaction and response to it, and not to let it get you down. I can almost guarantee you your 15-year-old kid is going to grow effed up. I can almost guarantee you your mid-sister is going to grow effed up. You already are effed up to a certain extent, but you know you're effed up so you can control it. Like Harry Potter with whatever. I think it was Harry Potter. Anyway, so you can only control what you do. Try your best to help out your younger sister. Put your mom in quarantine, right? I wouldn't have anything to do with your mom. You have your chat with mom. Say, no, mom, you're not getting any of that money. That money's an escrow for whatever your younger sister is. And then if your sister decides to give it to your mom, fine. Don't, not you, man. It's not you. You're going to find out how really alone you are in this world. You're really going to find that out pretty soon. But as for your mother, yeah, man, you put her on ice, you deliver an ultimatum, and you get on with your life. And I would extract myself from that family in every way, financial, living arrangements, co-owned assets, whatever. You completely unentangle yourself from them. And then that way, when you hang out with them, it's under free will. It's under choice. So there we go. All right. Rob tuned in. You guys all tuned in a little late. I said no super chats. Let's get them out of the way real quick. Fernando, our Brazilian agent in the field. Cancel my order for a Tesla Y. Not really luxury. There you go, buddy. Unless they got really good electrical rates in Brazil. Uber Noob 85, $5. Nothing funnier than being lectured on political obligations by sports ball players and tax funded stadiums. Yeah, exactly. And then Rob Fogulski, reliable Rob. 501, women never look themselves in the mirror and say, it's my fault. What should I do to fix this situation? Understand you may never talk to her again. That is very true. That is very true. That goes for men too. You'll see that with guys, but I'll say women are more prone to that, to protect their ego. Every great once in a while, you'll find a real man, even rare, a real woman, admit she's wrong. And stop being solipsistic. We'll look at other people and realize, oh, there's other people around. There's sentient entities. All right, that's it. Questions, answers, assholeconsulting.com. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.